Hello, horror fans, and welcome to another episode of Silver Screams. We're doing something a little different tonight. We are actually talking, because it's October.
And because we can.
And because we're adults. We are going to be talking to you about one or two episodes of Goosebumps.
Let's do two.
Two episodes of Goosebumps, because we've already watched them. We are going to be talking to you about the Goosebumps television series, two episodes in particular, Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns, and It Came from Beneath the Sink.
I am more fond of It Came from Beneath the Sink than I thought I would be, to be completely honest.
The evil sponge.
I love it! It's so dumb! It's dumb, and then they built this really good mythology around it. Like, this is the proto-Gravity Falls.
In a weird way, there was a lot that could have been done, and yeah, I can totally see what you're saying. Let's go ahead and give the background of this episode first. I will be honest, I did not read the book for either of these. I read a lot of Goosebumps books, but I didn't ever get to Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns, and I never read this is embarrassing to admit, but I never read It Came from Beneath the Sink because I was too scared of the cover art.
You're sitting next to someone who never made it to the end of Welcome to Dead House.
Which is a shame. That one's great.
I was terrified. I slept with the light on. My parents did not understand.
They're like, why?
Your brother reads these all the time. Yeah, that's my brother.
And that's the thing. Every kid has a different level of, I guess, tolerance, I suppose.
Tolerance is good. Mine's all the way down here, below the frame.
Yeah, every kid has a different, except nightmare fuel very differently. But anyway, so It Came from Beneath the Sink is, of course, about a kid who moves into a new house, as is
you
like
do.
The case of like 90% of Goosebump books, I want to say.
And I'm a military brat, so it's like we moved into a new house. I'm like, okay. And then we moved into an actual haunted house, and it was fine.
Yeah. You never had any crazy adventure?
Oh, we had plenty of crazy adventures with the ghosts, but then none of them were, they were all benign. That's the word I was looking for.
You never had a life or death scenario where you had to learn a lesson and overcome some sort of obstacle and have character growth?
No. Then again, I was already in high school at that point.
Your life is so boring.
I lived in a haunted house.
So boring. You didn't even learn a lesson. But anyway.
I learned not to go in the attic if the people who lived previously in the house told you not to go in the goddamn attic.
Anyway, that's a story for another day.
That's someone else's story, too, not ours.
But so kid and her family moves into this new house, and as they're unloading stuff, her dog starts pawing at the kitchen sink, and it turns out, she's like, oh, there must be something in there. And she sees a pair of glowing red eyes, assumes it's a cat, and starts looking for it.
Because glowing red eyes says, here, kitty, kitty, kitty.
And so, yeah.
Not if they're red,
but
dear heart.
instead of a cat, it is indeed an evil sponge with teeth. And
what I love is that it looks like they built an animatronic sponge.
They did.
That makes me really happy.
And I will give them credit where credit is due. I mean, they did what they could on a limited budget. God, this show is so dumb.
It was filmed in the 90s in Canada. It's like Animorphs.
On a very, speaking of Animorphs, we did watch another episode with the character, like the same actress who played Rachel was randomly in it.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
Fun.
She was in a Shocker on Shock Street, for those of you who know.
Which was stunningly disappointing when you have read the book. There was a lack of giant praying mantises.
There really was.
But that's really hard to do on a very low budget.
That's why you got to go see the movie, guys.
So we go back to the evil potato.
And no,
Sponge.
It's the evil sponge. The evil potato is jumping ahead.
It is
the evil vampire potato is jumping ahead in this story. I never thought I'd say those words together.
But the long and short of this is that it's essentially a bad luck demon, and that it latches on to the first person who finds it, and that person cannot get rid of it, or they'll die. But the demon sponge thing causes bad luck and then feeds on the bad things.
Which is
pretty smart.
That's actually, like, again, having not read the book, that's a really interesting premise. And as you mentioned,
that is like Stephen King level of monsters before Stephen King went off the deep end.
And it's even almost, because you mentioned it being kind of like a primordial Gravity Falls, this to me is almost a primordial Sinister in that, like, if you move on from this thing, that it will result in your demise.
See, I was thinking more in terms of Gravity Falls because they have an encyclopedia of the weird, and it has all these entries about, oh, well, there's this, and there's that, and there's this other thing, and this is how you do the thing, and here's your information, and it's just all in this very convenient book.
It's the MacGuffin.
And we have a group of kids solving the mysteries, and like, this is Gravity Falls in Canada in the early 90s.
Completely unrelated to anything, I actually really did like this kid who had the Encyclopedia of the Weird.
I know, right?
Because his introduction in this episode was him riding up to their new house and checking his stopwatch. And he's like, guys, it only took me 8 minutes and 40 some odd seconds to get here. And they're like, that's practically in the same neighborhood. So this is a kid who was like presumably right next door to where they lived, who, on the day that they moved, made a point of seeing how long it would take to get to their house. And I was like, that's incredibly sweet. Like,
he's also a giant nerd, which is really helpful.
But, like, that was really adorable. And, like, I always get surprised when I'm rewatching, like, schlock that I watched when I was a child and actually seeing genuine, like, moments of sweetness or really clever storytelling because it's schlock. It doesn't have to be.
For being an episode about an evil sponge, I actually really liked this one.
Yeah,
like, it was a lot better than some of them are, and some of them are just kind of.
Yeah, and there was even a little bit of Gremlins when they decided for science they would take it down to the school and have it studied by one of the teachers. It luckily went a lot better for the teacher in this one than it did in Gremlins.
Well,
that guy's so dead.
They initially buried it, and, their friend was like, no, we should really test it for science. And then the thing goes, he's like, never mind science, bury that sucker.
Kill it with fire.
And then it starts killing everything that's growing. It's killing the lawn and the trees and the flowers. And like, okay, we obviously can't bury it. Let's have a teacher look at it. The teacher's like, it's a sponge. Like, I know, but just be really careful, okay? And that's when they find the book and they find out, okay, we can't get rid of it because X reasons. Let's go back to school in the middle of the night and get it back.
The way to mollify it or like essentially negate its negative effects is with positive vibrations. And this was very kind of going back to other Goosebumps stories, like the Haunted Mask. The way you defeated the mask in that story was the power of love. And
but this one I'll buy, because when this thing literally feeds on negativity, and they find this out because the janitor has a Walkman, like a tape Walkman, definitely the early 90s, that's playing You Are My Sunshine. And,
good generic copyright-free song.
Yeah. He gets knocked out, things happen, etc. And then the evil sponge starts freaking out when he hears the music. I'm like, oh, okay. So they essentially defeat it with good vibrations.
Yeah, and again, pretty clever. If this was anything but a sponge, I feel like it would have worked a lot better. But because it's a sponge, it's laughable because this is a story about an evil sponge.
Honestly, I'd go with it because it looks like something that probably could have stuck around for freaking ever and probably has. And it's an innocuous enough item that, yeah, you sound like an absolute crazy person. But honestly, this is probably going to be one of the better things that's happened to her. Because it forces her to be positive every day. And when you get into a habit like that, it's easier and easier to do it, and it helps your outlook on life.
And I think she also takes a delight in essentially torturing this thing that was making her and her family miserable. Like
waking up and greeting it with the equivalent of "Good morning, starshine, the universe says hello."
Good morning, starshine. I
actually did have a friend greet me with that once, and I kind of woke up and went, no, and rolled back over.
You twinkle above us, we twinkle below. You were clearly
try that when it's 4 a.m.
You were clearly not a bad luck monster.
No.
This isn't causing you to die or anything like that. Of course, the twist ending, and I will actually give them credit for laying the foundation for it earlier, was
so great.
As another, and actually this was a very Gravity Falls thing, because in the first episode of Gravity Falls, Dipper thinks that the monster that is trying to get her, a vampire or a zombie. He thinks specifically zombie, but as he's flipping through the pages to get to that page, he holds up the book and it's a page about gnomes. And then he's like, oh, no, that's not it. And then holds up the picture of the zombie.
Lo and behold,
and lo
later
and behold,
on,
it ended up becoming gnomes. And this was very similar because this kid is flipping through the pages of the Encyclopedia of the Weird and comes across essentially a vampire potato.
It's a potato that sucks the life essences of the people around it, and they're like, no, focus. Like,
and they're like,
this guy.
Literally, let's deal with one monster at a time. And then, sure enough, the dog, which I thought
had gone missing. I thought the monster ate it, but it just ran away.
That was the implications, or it caused it to disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, the implications was that the monster ate it, but it turns out that the dog is alive and well and comes back at the very end of the episode as she's torturing the sponge with the Goosebumps theme, which I always liked it when they incorporated the theme in the show. I always thought that was very clever.
Because who needs a fourth wall, right?
Exactly. And so the dog comes in, the family's happy, the mom's gonna go make French toast, everything is great, and then the dog awesome. Drops the vampire potato into our protagonist's hands, and we end on a freeze frame of her screaming as this crazy thing with teeth is in her hands. So,
it's like Predator potato.
A little bit, yeah. And
so that was a really fun episode. I actually really enjoyed that one.
It's
super dorky.
It's one of those things, because I was terrified of it when I was a kid, when I finally did get it around to watching it when I was older, when I was on this big nostalgia kick, I watched it and I was like, this is dumb. This is so dumb. I can't believe I was scared of this. But you're absolutely right. Even though, like, when you say evil sponge, it sounds about as stupid as lamp monster. A family gets attacked by a lamp monster.
But the way they executed it, and the fact that this is something that could have been around for forever, and that they're laying, it's not just a, here's the twist ending. It's a, we've laid the groundwork. We could have a whole other book about the vampire potato, and we could, again, it's like the first episode of Gravity Falls.
And probably the biggest weakness of this is the biggest weakness of every Goosebumps episode, and that's just they have such a small budget for effects. And again, that's part of the charm.
Animatronic sponge.
That's part.
Like it.
Even though that's something that detracts and takes you out of it. It is something that, they did what they could, and it's part of the charm, because when you step back, this is a dumb show from the 90s, but it is so good, and that doesn't mean there aren't good things in it.
Oh, yeah. It's a blast.
So let's go on to a not as good one. Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns. And again, I apologize, I never read the book for this one. It was not one of my favorites.
I have to wonder how the source material differed from what we saw on the screen, because for Shocker of Shock Street, there was a lot that was different.
Yeah, there was a lot that was cut out.
There was a lot they cut out because they had to, because budgets. I mean, you can't have a giant praying mantis running around when you cannot render that on the screen.
No.
And so, like, if they put that in the Goosebumps movie, hey, you have a budget now.
They did put it in the Goosebumps movie.
Well, someone's seen it.
I have seen it, and we'll get to that later.
I'm jealous. Nostalgia.
I won't say anything, but I'm going to go see it again.
And I'm going to go see it for the first time.
I'm going to go see it again, and I will do it with a smile on my face.
I mean, we're watching and reviewing the 90s series. Why would we not see the movie?
Exactly. So, anyway, getting back to this episode, Attack of the Jack-o'-lantern, it starts off with Drew and her friend Walker.
Texas Ranger.
Walking down the street, dropping exposition about the fact that it's almost Halloween.
And 4 people have gone missing in the next town over. 4 adults.
4 adults have gone missing. And it's funny because if you've forgotten this point, they will certainly remind you throughout the rest of the episode. Hey, remember, 4 people went missing. Remember that. That's important. And this is one of those ones where I feel like, I don't know if it's just that the story was bad or that but I feel like this one didn't have as much faith in its audience as the other one did.
I just think it was poorly executed. I think the scares that they were going for weren't as scary, and that the story didn't have as much to it.
Yeah.
And again, I have to wonder if there is something in the original story that would have required bigger budget effects that they simply could not do. And that cutting that out made it lackluster.
Yeah. So they meet up with two people jump out at them, and it's Drew's old friends, Sean and Shayna, which they were her best friends for the longest time, and then they moved away. And so she's just really happy that they're in town for a little bit. They're only in town for like one more day.
For Halloween!
Pretty much. And so she's really happy to see them again. But then who jumps out right after them are these two bullies whose name I didn't even register, but they were just jerks. They were generic bully jerks, a boy and a girl.
Boy bully and girl bully.
I assume they were brother and sister because they had matching costumes for both this prank and for the day when they all go trick-or-treating together.
I have no idea what any of them were costumed as.
The first,
when
they jumped out,
terrible puns about Dark and Stormy Night with Walker because he's dressed all in black and has a squirt gun. Which, okay, mid-90s, I'll give it to you.
That was stupid, even for the time. Even for the time that was dumb.
Yeah, but Walker was not on the up and up. If
no,
you
he was.
Noticed.
He was a little behind.
He was a little out of it, and I don't. Just one of those people who's not super great at social cues.
But what I thought was interesting and actually kind of good foreshadowing for later on. Again, there's a lot in this episode that didn't work. But something that was kind of good is that when these two jumped out to scare Drew and Walker, the other two kids didn't react in any way, shape, or form. They were just kind of like, so that's a thing that's happening. They didn't react in any way. And then, sure enough, these two bullies walk off. Again, all high and mighty for some reason, and they're clearly not on good terms with Shane and Shauna either, so they walk away.
They did have a couple of kind of hilarious comebacks and some wonderful overacting moments. Just the boy going, and then walking off.
Walking off. It's like, where do you get off, kid? But like the whole big thing is that after this, Drew is basically tired of their shenanigans and wants to get back at them. And so Shane and Shauna are like, we have something in mind. But don't exactly divulge their plan. Yeah. They're like, just trust us. We've got this.
We got this.
We got this. We've got this figured out. And so it gets to be, then we have in the middle of the episode, coming right out of nowhere, we have Drew having a nightmare about what would happen, which she actually predicted the costumes that the two bullies were going to be wearing in this weird prophetic dream.
They went upstairs in this house like, oh, come in, my husband's sick, but he loves seeing trick-or-treater costumes. Just come in and go up the stairs. And I'm like, yeah, no. So they go in and they go up the stairs, and there's this really creepy old guy just holding a bunch of children hostage who are in Halloween costumes. I like your costumes. You're going to stay forever.
And Shane and Shauna were there too. They were one of the captives. But and I think what this was to try to throw off the audience that Shane and Shauna were.
Is it Shane and Shauna or Sean and Shayna?
I think it's Sean and Shayna. I don't know.
Those guys.
It doesn't matter. They're not people.
Literally, you guys.
They're not people.
They're literally not people.
But I think this was done to purposely throw off kids in terms of like thinking that they might have something to do with what's happening later.
And prophetic dreams is kind of a plot in horror media and a lot of other somewhat fantasy media. And so you start thinking, oh, this is what's going to happen.
Yeah, they're like, her friends are in trouble. And she also, at some point, pulls Walker aside and was like, I had a really weird dream. I'm worried about my friends and worried about the current situation that we're in.
And Mom and Dad have a moment of Mom going, I don't want you to go trick-or-treating, and Dad going, oh, it'll be okay, she can handle herself. And us going, why doesn't one of you just go with them? Yeah. Aren't they like elementary school, middle school
I would assume middle
still
school.
Young enough that they really should require supervision.
I assumed middle school. I assume that most Goosebumps protagonists, unless otherwise stated, are 12.
Yeah. 12 is definitely, you need adult supervision, kids.
Yeah, because 12 is that, like, I'm old enough to be wanting to do things on my own.
And young enough that it's still a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, again,
and that's where they hammer home that people are missing. Yes, but it happened the next town over, and it's miles away from here.
Yeah, no, it's no big deal. So her parents let her go out, without supervision, which is
But with Walker, as long as they stay together,
I mean, he is tall. He is tall. That doesn't help, does it?
Walker would be the number one most useless person in these sorts of situations.
Pretty much.
And again, I realize he's 12.
Well,
but we've had some fairly competent 12-year-olds on the show.
I think he's supposed to be a little older.
Is he?
I think, he might even be as old as 14. He might also just be a really tall 12-year-old. I don't know.
I'm going to go with that. Anyway.
It's hard to tell with kids. Anyway, so they go out with the bullies, and they are going out trick-or-treating, and they want to wait around for Sean and Shayna to show up.
Those guys.
I'm just going to call them Shane and
Shauna. For S&S.
For their friends to show up because they know that their friends have a prank in store. And they're like, but they're not privy to it. So they're like, maybe we should wait. And they're like, wait for what? I don't have a good answer to that.
Okay, let's go trick-or-treating instead.
And so they start going trick-or-treating when out of freaking nowhere, these giant creatures with pumpkin heads and crab people claws essentially jump out and scare them and say that there's a better place to go trick-or-treating.
We know of a new neighborhood. Come trick-or-treat.
Which, I don't know why you wouldn't appear as somebody more innocuous, lure them to the scary place, and then appear as the scary thing. When you start off as the scary thing, stranger danger. Like, that's a thing.
And we have the wondering, is this Sean and Sheena? Are these the people? Do we really know?
But they don't seem to be responding.
Let's go with them anyway.
Yeah, they don't seem to be responding to it.
And this is why you needed adult supervision, children.
And
you went anyway.
Because you went with strangers. You went with strangers with crab hands.
Human.
Why?
Children.
But, so they go to this creepy-looking neighborhood where, of course, every house has mountains of candy, but none of the residents seem to be quite there 100%.
They're a little same-facey.
And then
1,000-yard stare.
When the kids run off, you see that they transform into pumpkin heads as well. Or I guess jack-o'-lantern heads, because it's Attack of the Jack-o'-lanterns.
Yeah.
And they get to a point where they're ready to call it a night, and the two jack-o'-lanterns are like, no.
Trick or treat
forever. And
well, our bags are full and we're tired and we need to go home. And they grab one of the girl bully's bag, upend it, dump all the candy out. Now it's empty. Great, keep trick-or-treating.
And I like that it was at that point where they were like, this is serious.
We're done.
This is serious. We have to bolt. And not to mention that these things can fire lasers from their claws.
And remove their own heads.
And that's when they knew that this wasn't a joke.
Serious business.
And they're lasers, and also they spew fire from the jack-o'-lantern's faces as well. So the kids run off into the woods, the jack-o'-lantern creatures catch up, and then the bullies run off without Drew and Walker.
Well, they're like, we'll make you one of us, wear the head. And that's the point where they went, nope, we're done.
And so they run off, and Drew and Walker are left standing there as the two jack-o'-lanterns laugh and turn back into Sean and Shayna. Yeah. Or whatever their names are. And so Walker, Drew is ecstatic that it's them. She's like, I thought it was you, and then I wasn't sure, and then I was really hoping it was you. That this was all done as a way to prank the bullies and, give them a real scare on Halloween.
And Walker's basically, I don't understand any of this. You fired lasers and you turned into things and this doesn't seem physically possible, and how?
And this is when they reveal that, in fact, this entire time they were aliens. And moving away, I guess, meant going
to
back
another
to
planet.
Homeworld. And so, but they were apparently such good friends with Drew that they
came back to visit.
And also that they divulged this information to her in the first place when they were living next door to her. And so he was like, why didn't you tell me? And she's like, would you have believed me? Which the answer is probably no, because that's crazy talk. That is crazy talk, Drew. And then we get a kind of mean-spirited ending where they...
Kind of?
Yeah.
Extremely.
An extremely mean-spirited ending where they take off their human disguises and they have tiny, tiny little sock puppet heads.
green
Like,
heads.
not even like Muppet looking heads, like literally sock puppet heads with like
Well, you know
googly
what
eyes.
it is. It's the same way that they do the Headless Horseman for Sleepy Hollow now, is that they have that really, really tall costume where the shoulders of the costume are above the actor's head, and it's a harness, and that way you can have the headless effect without anything going on. So that's how they did the pumpkin people, and that's also how they did the aliens, is they, you know, use the exact same black costumes and just put the little alien head above it instead of having a pumpkin.
Yeah, but it
So
still
it's actually
looks...
a fairly smart way to do things when you are that low budget.
It is, but it's still, like, their faces still looked like sock
Oh yeah, the
puppets.
head design was terrible.
I mean, I will give them credit for the jack-o'-lantern heads because they certainly looked fake at certain points, but I will give them credit for it. It was a decent character design.
Oh, yeah.
I liked it. But yeah, these alien heads looked ridiculous, and so their ride shows up, and they basically said, dropped the fact that the missing people...
They basically said, we eat people. Yeah, we had a 4-course dinner the other night.
Because, like, earlier that night, that means that they killed those 4 people and ate them. With their tiny little green heads. And this was after Drew offered them candy for the road, because she was just, again, she was just so happy to see them.
My friends.
You were my friends, have some candy for the road. And they're like, we actually don't eat candy, we eat people. But we had a 4-course meal earlier tonight. And
So
she's
we're
like,
good.
wait, you ate the 4 missing people? And that's when they turn to her, and it's like, I can't tell if they were joking or if they were serious, but even as a joke, it's
Kind of hard to read facial expressions on a sock puppet.
It's an extremely poor taste, because they're like, you better not eat all that candy.
Because we'll come back next year.
Because we are coming back. We are coming back next year, and we, you know, you don't want to get fat, basically, or we'll eat you. And, like, on the one hand, it's like if they're joking and it's all in good fun, that's one thing.
That's
on the other
still
hand,
messed up.
they ate 4 people. 4 full-grown adults. That means that they were able to subdue, capture, and then subsequently murder and eat these people.
It's a cookbook! A cookbook!
And again, if Drew is such a good friend to them, like, I think this is the bit...
Is this why they had to move away? Because people would just keep going missing in their town?
Yeah, and again, this is, to me, this is the messed up part, is that she genuinely seemed like their friend. Like, they were willing to pull an elaborate prank for her. They came back to town and made it a point to go and see her.
And then they're like, and we might eat you.
So I'm just wondering, clearly they have a weird morality, you know, aspect of morality in terms of, like, but they clearly cared about her enough to, like, do this for her. But then, like, as the biggest backhand, after she offers them candy, is like, ugh, damn human with your damn human food, get that away from me or I'll eat you, kind of thing.
And then they leave. And so that's what she has to stew on for the next year. Is that these people that I was friends with, I knew they were aliens, but evidently they eat people and they threaten to eat me.
So it's essentially, I'm gonna miss you guys so much, have some candy for the road, and their response is a giant middle finger. And then they hop onto their spaceship and leave. It's like, you guys are the worst.
They really are.
And again, they didn't seem too terrible, because if they really wanted to be awful, they could have just eaten the 2 bullies. But, like, so they clearly have some line that they won't cross.
That was some scriptwriter who really wanted to wrap up the, by the way, there's missing people. I don't know if that was in the original book. I have no idea how that was or how that turned out. But it was definitely like, we're buddy-buddy, we're buddy-buddy, and you might die. Yeah.
Yeah, this, I don't want to call it a confused ending, but
it's just not confused, it's just messed up.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, and maybe I'm taking it too personally, but these things were clearly her friends, and I just can't get past that. That to me is really
it's messed
upsetting.
up. It's pretty messed up.
Yeah.
And it's something where, you know, kids are watching this going, can I trust my friends now?
Or they're going, wow, those monsters look stupid. I guess, or maybe they were looking at the alien design and they were like, man, these look stupid. We better have them say something to make them seem scary, because they really don't look it.
Now they look stupid, and they're dicks.
they're just assholes. That's what they are. But yeah, that basically wraps it up for these 2 episodes. Goosebumps is hilarious
in
and
which
corny.
the evil sponge was a better monster than the man-eating aliens.
Yeah.
Think about that one for a minute. The evil sponge was a better monster than the man-eating aliens.
Yep. So that, again, Goosebumps is hilarious, awful, and brilliant by turns. It is all of these things together because there are some genuinely good themes, monsters, and setups in this, but the execution is always really goofy and obviously low budget.
It was also made for the group of kids who read the books who are very young. They are young reader books.
Mm-hmm.
They're at like, what, 5 to 10, 5 to 12?
I
Maybe
would
not
assume
5, like 6 to 12.
I would assume maybe 6 or 7 to 12, yeah.
But young readers' books. It kind of hit the same bracket as the Babysitter's Club Little Sister.
Yeah. Which Babysitter's Club? Did you ever read any of the Babysitter's Club mysteries?
Yes. All of them.
All of them? Wow. I only ever read the one.
All of them for a while.
Yeah. You have a budget. You could only buy so many books from the book orders that came
libraries.
in every...
We were a huge library family.
It's a lot cheaper that way.
It's free.
But anyway...
Support your local libraries.
Support your local libraries.
Support your local libraries. They're wonderful.
But yeah, these episodes, again, corny, schlocky, but there's some good stuff, except for Attack of the Jack-O-Lanterns. Terrible. If you guys want us to review any more old Goosebumps episodes, we would be more than happy to do that.
Give us some recommendations because we're probably going to do this anyway. Just tell us which ones you'd like to see.
If you
have Halloween episodes of any other series, if you want us to look at How I Met Your Mother or My Little Pony or Sabrina or Buffy.
Yeah, Buffy.
Yeah, throw them our way. Let us know. We will track them down and watch them and talk about them.
Yep. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Katie, where can people go if they want to find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram at Kiaxet. That's Kiaxet.
You guys can follow me on Twitter at TheMenguin, that's TheMenguin, also on Instagram. And you can follow Silver Screams on Twitter and Instagram at Silver_Screams, and it's also on Facebook as well. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you all next time.